Most people expose themselves without realizing it. Their emotions leak through words. Their insecurity rushes into conversations. Their need for approval makes them transparent. That transparency is why they are easy to manipulate. Machiavelli understood something most never will. The one who speaks less forces others to reveal more. Silence creates imbalance. Imbalance creates discomfort, and discomfort forces submission. Ignoring people is not about arrogance, it is about discipline. It is about refusing to feed egos that survive on attention. When reactions stop, control begins. When explanations end, authority rises. When access is limited, respect follows. This is why distance feels threatening to weak minds. They cannot read it. They cannot control it. They cannot predict what comes next. The strongest presence in any room is not noise, it is restraint. Those who master restraint become untouchable. Comment, silence is my weapon if this truth is understood. Control begins where reactions end. Most men are trained to answer immediately. A message arrives, they rush to reply. A remark challenges them, they defend. A slight appears, they explain. This conditioning is subtle but lethal. Every fast response exposes priority. Every explanation reveals insecurity. Every emotional reaction hands leverage to the other side. Ignoring is not absence. Ignoring is command. Machiavelli understood that men reveal themselves when they are denied attention. Take away the reaction and watch what happens. Voices get louder. Words get sloppy. Intentions leak. Silence is not empty space. It is a mirror. And weak minds cannot stand what they see in it. Those who crave validation will chase it. Those who fear irrelevance will overperform. Those who seek dominance will rush to provoke. Let them. The disciplined man does not interrupt this process. He observes it. Ignoring is not about arrogance. It is about hierarchy. It quietly establishes who moves and who waits. Distance sharpens presence. Restraint magnifies authority. Unpredictability forces respect. When responses slow down, others adjust their tone. When emotions disappear, manipulation loses traction. When access is restricted, value rises. This is psychological gravity. People orbit what they cannot reach. Anger is loud. Defensiveness is desperate. Silence is controlled. The man who refuses to react owns the tempo of every interaction. He decides when engagement begins and when it ends. This is how dominance forms without confrontation. This is how influence spreads without words. This is how respect appears without being requested. Ignoring is not weakness, it is filtration. Not everyone deserves presence. Not every voice earns response. Not every challenge warrants acknowledgement. The disciplined mind understands one rule. Attention is a weapon, and it is used selectively. Those who master this law become difficult to read, difficult to provoke, and impossible to manipulate. Mark this understanding. Comment, stillness is dominance below if this principle is locked in. Respect is not created by presence, it is created by absence. They believe staying available makes them important. They believe constant engagement builds value. In reality, it does the opposite. Availability cheapens, predictability weakens. Overexposure erodes authority. Machiavelli observed that people desire what resists them. What is always present becomes background noise. What is difficult to access becomes significant. Withdrawal is not retreat, it is strategy. When attention is removed, the mind fills the gap. Speculation begins. Doubt grows. Curiosity sharpens. Silence forces others to do the mental labor. They replay conversations. They analyze expressions. They question their own position. This is where psychological dominance forms. Weak minds panic in silence. They rush to regain relevance. They send unnecessary messages. They seek reassurance disguised as confidence. Let them expose themselves. The disciplined man does not chase clarity for others. He understands that uncertainty destabilizes opponents far more effectively than confrontation. Engagement gives comfort. Distance creates tension. Tension bends behavior. When access is limited, people adjust. They speak carefully. They think twice. They move with caution. This is not manipulation through force. This is control through restraint. Withdrawal also protects the inner state. No wasted emotion, no reactive decisions, no energy spent on unworthy targets. Stoic restraint is not emotional numbness. It is emotional command. Nothing leaks, nothing spills, nothing is given freely. The man who withdraws selectively becomes difficult to read, and what cannot be read cannot be controlled. This is why silence frustrates manipulators. They need reactions to calibrate their next move. Without feedback, their tactics collapse. Distance is a filter. It reveals intention without interrogation. Those who matter remain steady. Those who don't reveal themselves quickly. This law is simple but ruthless. Do not explain withdrawal. Do not announce distance. Let absence speak. People will either rise to the silence or collapse beneath it. Both outcomes serve you. Lock this principle into behavior, not words. Comment. Distance decides dominance, if this is understood. Dominance is built by denying fuel. Every interaction runs on one resource, emotion. Give it freely, and others grow bold. Withdraw it, and they weaken. Most men leak emotion without realizing it. Tone rises, body language shifts, words betray inner movement. That leakage is what manipulators hunt. Machiavelli understood this instinctively. Control is not gained by overpowering others. It is gained by starving them of feedback. Emotional starvation creates imbalance. The other side begins to reach, to test, to provoke. Not because they are strong, but because they are unsettled. A man who shows nothing becomes a psychological void, and the human mind cannot tolerate a void. It fills it with assumptions, fear, projection. This is where control quietly takes root. Cold composure is not cruelty. It is containment. No visible excitement, no visible irritation, no visible disappointment. When nothing is shown, nothing can be used. This is why stoic restraint feels intimidating. There is no leverage, no entry point, no emotional handle to grab. The disciplined mind does not suppress emotion. It stores it. Emotion is released deliberately, strategically, never impulsively. Those who cannot read you cannot rush you. Those who cannot move you cannot manage you. Silence forces others to escalate. They talk more. They reveal motives. They expose insecurities. The trap closes itself. Emotional starvation also reshapes self-perception. The one who withholds begins to feel heavier, more grounded, more in control. Presence sharpens, movements slow, words gain weight. This is the quiet authority men sense but cannot explain. Nothing is demanded, nothing is forced, yet the dynamic shifts, the room adjusts. This law is ruthless because it works silently. No confrontation, no explanation, no justification, only restraint. Master this, and reactions around you change. Voices soften, postures adjust, disrespect hesitates, because instinct recognizes what the mind cannot articulate. A man unmoved is a man unmanageable. Lock this principle into behavior. Comment. Cold mind, steady hand. Presence is not volume, it is density. Walking into a space and needing to be noticed is insecurity in disguise. True authority arrives quietly and rearranges the atmosphere without effort. Controlled presence begins with posture. Internal, not physical. No rush to speak. No need to impress. No hunger for validation. Machiavelli understood that influence does not come from being everywhere. It comes from being precise, appearing only when necessary conditions others to pay attention. Speaking only when something must be said trains others to listen. Remaining unreadable keeps intentions protected. Presence is weakened by overexposure. Too much talking thins it out. Too much availability dilutes it. Too much explanation fractures it. The disciplined mind treats interaction like a weapon, drawn only when required, handled with intent, returned to silence immediately after. Eyes observe before words move. Breath stays steady while others fidget. Stillness becomes unsettling. This is not intimidation through force. This is command through restraint. When presence is controlled, others begin adjusting subconsciously. Their speech shortens, their posture shifts, their tone softens. Not because of fear, but because instinct senses hierarchy. Controlled presence also eliminates wasted conflict. No debates that serve nothing, no arguments that leak energy, no emotional displays that hand advantage away. Everything unnecessary is removed. What remains is weight. A man who occupies space without filling it becomes difficult to ignore and impossible to provoke. Provocations lose power when they find no reaction. Challenges lose momentum when they meet calm. Silence becomes a boundary. Those who cross it do so carefully. This law demands patience. Not passive patience, disciplined patience. The ability to wait without anxiety, to observe without interference, to let others reveal themselves fully before engagement. When engagement finally happens, it carries authority because it is rare. Presence should never beg for attention. It should command it by absence. Those who understand this do not chase influence. They allow influence to accumulate around them naturally. Stillness sharpens awareness. Restraint sharpens impact. Control sharpens dominance. This is how rooms change without a word being spoken. Lock this behavior into habit. Comment: I choose restraint. Patience is misunderstood because it is silent. It looks passive to those who live on impulse. It feels uncomfortable to those addicted to reaction. But in reality, patience is pressure held under control. Everything reveals itself with time. Intentions crack, masks slip, patterns repeat. The impatient interrupt this process. They rush outcomes. They force clarity. They expose themselves before the other side ever moves. Patience does the opposite. Waiting without anxiety unsettles people. Stillness without explanation creates imbalance. Time stretches and pressure builds. Machiavelli understood that haste belongs to the insecure. Those who hurry are trying to escape uncertainty. Those who wait are studying it. Patience is not delay. It is dominance over tempo. The one who controls timing controls the interaction. Moves are made when advantage is highest, not when emotion demands release. This is how traps close naturally. No confrontation, no warning, just inevitability. Others grow restless. They talk more than necessary. They push when they should pause. They reveal strategies without being asked. Silence plus time is interrogation without words. Patience also sharpens internal discipline. Emotions are felt, but not obeyed. Impulses arise, but are denied authority. The mind stays seated above the storm. This restraint creates gravity. Decisions made slowly land heavier. Words spoken late carry more weight. Actions taken after observation feel final. Nothing looks accidental. Nothing feels rushed. Everything appears intentional. This is why patience intimidates. It signals preparedness. It signals confidence without display. It signals that nothing is being forced. Those who cannot wait seek control through pressure. Those who can wait allow control to come to them. The patient man never chases outcomes. He positions himself where outcomes have no choice but to arrive. This is cold strategy, not hope. Calculated stillness, not hesitation. When patience becomes habit, reactions around you change. People slow down. They reconsider words. They hesitate before testing boundaries. Because instinct understands one thing clearly. Time favors the one who is not in a hurry. Seal this law into behavior. Comment: time works for me. Reaction is surrender dressed as honesty. The instant emotion dictates movement, control evaporates. Words come out unfiltered. Decisions shrink to impulses. Leverage transfers silently to whoever provoked the response. Non-reaction is not suppression. It is command over the inner state. Machiavelli understood that the battlefield is internal before it is external. Whoever controls the pulse controls the outcome. Whoever steadies the breath decides the pace. Provocation is a test. It measures patience. It measures ego. It measures whether authority is real or theatrical. The disciplined mind passes the test by refusing to play. No visible irritation, no rushed defense, no emotional correction. Stillness interrupts expectation. When a reaction is denied, momentum collapses. The other side stumbles. They escalate. They overreach. Silence becomes friction. Non-reaction forces recalibration. Tactics lose rhythm, confidence erodes, assumptions break. This is why restraint feels heavier than aggression. Aggression burns quickly, restraint suffocates slowly. The mind trained in non-reaction becomes unshakable. Thoughts are observed, not obeyed. Feelings are acknowledged, not acted upon. Impulse is denied authority. This creates separation between stimulus and response. In that space, dominance forms. Nothing leaks, nothing betrays intention, nothing invites manipulation. Non-reaction also sharpens perception. While others chase emotional release, awareness expands. Details surface, patterns reveal themselves. What was hidden becomes obvious when noise disappears. This is not emotional coldness, it is emotional literacy at its highest level. Choosing not to react is choosing when to act. And timing is everything. Words spoken late land harder. Decisions made calmly appear final. Boundaries enforced without emotion are rarely tested twice. Those who cannot move you cannot manage you. Those who cannot provoke you cannot predict you. This discipline does not seek attention. It erodes resistance quietly. It reshapes dynamics without announcement. Non-reaction is not weakness. It is pressure applied internally until the external adjusts. Fix this law into behavior. Comment, I decide the moment. Being untouchable is not about isolation. It is about selective exposure. An untouchable presence is one that cannot be rushed, read, or emotionally accessed without permission. Nothing is given on impulse. Nothing is revealed prematurely. Nothing leaks under pressure. This state is built deliberately. Access is granted slowly. Familiarity is rationed. Trust is earned through time, not words. Machiavelli understood that closeness without control breeds vulnerability. Those who enter too quickly feel entitled. Those who are allowed too easily feel powerful. The disciplined mind reverses this dynamic. Distance is maintained even in conversation. Calm remains even in tension. Boundaries exist without being announced. This creates friction, and friction creates respect. Untouchability confuses those who rely on emotional shortcuts. They cannot charm it. They cannot intimidate it. They cannot guilt it into movement. Every attempt to breach composure is met with neutrality. No reward, no punishment, just absence of reaction. That absence teaches faster than confrontation ever could. Untouchability is also internal. No dependency on praise. No collapse under criticism. No urgency to be understood. The inner world remains sealed. When validation is no longer required, freedom appears. When approval loses influence, authority sharpens. When opinions stop shaping behavior, direction becomes clear. This is why indifference feels threatening. It removes leverage. It denies control. It forces others to face themselves. An untouchable presence does not compete. Competition requires emotional investment. Instead, it observes, positions, and waits. Movement happens only when advantage is secured. This state alters social gravity. People approach more carefully. Words are chosen more precisely. Challenges soften before being voiced, not because fear is demanded, but because instinct senses stability. Untouchability is not coldness. It is self-contained power. Nothing external is needed to feel grounded. Nothing external is allowed to disrupt balance. This is the final separation between reaction and command, between exposure and control, between noise and influence. Those who reach this state do not announce it. They simply become difficult to affect and impossible to manipulate. Let this law settle into behavior. Comment, nothing moves me. Silence is misunderstood because it leaves no fingerprints. It doesn't announce intention. It doesn't reveal alignment. It doesn't betray timing. That is why it works. Words lock positions. Silence keeps options open. Machiavelli understood that speech is a commitment, and commitments can be exploited. The fewer commitments made, the fewer angles of attack exist. Silence shifts the burden. Others begin filling the gap. They clarify for you. They justify for you. They negotiate against themselves. This is not manipulation through deception. It is domination through restraint. Silence forces projection. People assume motives. They assign narratives. They reveal fears without being questioned. The quiet presence, becomes a canvas. Every insecurity paints itself. This is why silence unsettles. It denies certainty. It blocks leverage. It refuses emotional entry. Strategic silence is not constant. It is selective. It appears when reactions are expected. It holds when pressure is applied. It breaks only when advantage is secured. This timing separates silence from passivity. Passivity waits. Silence controls. Silence also sharpens authority. When words finally arrive, they land with gravity. They are not ignored, they are weighed. Nothing is wasted. Nothing is excessive. Everything carries intent. This trains others unconsciously. They learn to listen more closely. They learn to choose words carefully. They learn that access to attention is limited. Silence also protects direction. Plans stay sealed, moves stay unpredictable. Intentions remain private until execution. The one who speaks last often decides the outcome. This is why negotiations favor restraint, why confrontations dissolve under calm, why emotional traps fail without response. Silence is a wall without edges. There is nothing to grab, nothing to push against, nothing to escalate. Those who depend on chaos lose footing. Those who thrive on reaction lose momentum. Those who seek control lose direction, all without a word being spoken. Mastering silence does not require isolation. It requires discipline, the ability to hold space without filling it, to resist the urge to correct, defend, or perform. Silence is not empty. It is loaded. Loaded with awareness, loaded with timing, loaded with control. When silence becomes habit, interactions bend, pressure shifts, respect recalibrates. Nothing is forced. Everything aligns. Fix this into behavior, not theory. Comment, I let silence speak. Authority is felt before it is understood. At this stage, nothing is proven outwardly. No dominance is declared. No validation is sought. The shift happens internally first, and the external world responds automatically. Social gravity changes when reactions disappear completely, not reduced, not delayed, removed. Conversations no longer pull attention. Opinions stop influencing direction. Approval loses its weight. This is the point where dynamics reverse. People begin adjusting without being told. They mirror calm. They soften their tone. They hesitate before crossing boundaries they cannot explain. Nothing has been demanded, yet behavior changes. This is not charisma. It is containment. Containment of emotion. Containment of intent. Containment of energy. Machiavelli understood that influence peaks when nothing needs to be demonstrated. Display invites challenge. Stillness discourages it. At this level, words are minimal and deliberate. Silence handles most interactions. Presence alone does the work. Those who once tested now observe. Those who once pushed now wait. Those who once dismissed now calculate. The environment adapts. Social gravity does not come from force. It comes from consistency of restraint. When reactions are unavailable, manipulation starves. When emotion is inaccessible, leverage disappears. When validation is unnecessary, freedom becomes permanent. This is where distance becomes natural, not forced. Where respect is given without request. Where attention arrives without being chased. The internal state becomes sealed. Nothing external disturbs balance. Nothing external dictates movement. Nothing external defines identity. This creates psychological height. From that height, everything is seen clearly. Motives are obvious. Intentions are transparent. Patterns repeat predictably. And predictability belongs to others, not to you. This is the final shift before full detachment. The moment where influence exists without effort, where reactions around you become cautious, measured, restrained. Not out of fear, out of instinct. Because instinct recognizes stability it cannot control. Anchor this law into daily behavior, not occasionally, not selectively, relentlessly. Comment, I stand above reactions. This is where nothing is rushed anymore. Thought moves first. Emotion follows orders. Action arrives only when conditions are owned. The inner structure is complete. There is no hunger to be seen, no urgency to be heard, no impulse to correct, defend, or convince. The need to react has dissolved, not through effort, but through understanding. Machiavelli understood this endgame clearly. Those who master themselves never need to dominate others openly. Control becomes environmental. At this stage, silence is not restraint, it is preference. Speech is chosen, not triggered. Engagement is selective, not habitual. Distance is natural, not strategic. Nothing leaks outward. The mind remains sealed under pressure. Criticism finds no friction. Provocation finds no entry. Praise finds no dependency. This creates a rare psychological posture: unavailability without hostility, confidence without display, authority without demand. Interactions change shape here. People pause before speaking. They test less. They explain more than necessary. Not because of intimidation, because stability is felt. This is where identity hardens. No attachment to outcomes. No emotional debt to opinions. No investment in being understood. Direction remains constant even when perception shifts. The world adjusts to consistency it cannot move. Every action now carries weight because it is infrequent. Every word lands because it is not diluted. Every silence communicates because it is intentional. This is not isolation, it is self-contained command. Nothing external is needed to maintain balance. Nothing external is allowed to disrupt it. From here, ignoring is no longer a tactic. It is a byproduct of clarity. Noise is filtered automatically. Distractions fall away. Only relevance remains. This is the final discipline before permanence. The state where composure becomes identity, where restraint becomes instinct, where presence reshapes environments quietly. Nothing is chased, nothing is forced. Everything aligns through internal order. This is how influence becomes effortless. This is how control becomes invisible. This is how respect stabilizes without negotiation. Anchor this level permanently. Comment: I remain unmoved. At this stage, nothing needs reinforcement. The discipline sustains itself. Silence is no longer an action. It is a default state. Engagement is no longer automatic. It is earned. Emotion is no longer expressive. It is governed. This is where silent authority takes root. Authority that does not argue. Authority that does not explain. Authority that does not seek agreement. Machiavelli understood that authority collapses the moment it pleads to be recognized. What asks to be acknowledged has already lost leverage. Here, recognition arrives without invitation. People sense something before they understand it. Movements slow in your presence. Words are chosen with care. Boundaries are felt before they are crossed. Nothing is announced. Nothing is demanded. The authority exists because inner order exists. This level is maintained through refusal, not force. Refusal to react. Refusal to overexpose. Refusal to negotiate self-worth. The internal hierarchy is fixed. Emotion answers to logic. Impulse answers to intention. Silence answers to strategy. From this position, attention is optional. Validation is irrelevant. Conflict is avoidable. Not because of fear, but because others sense futility. Nothing escalates when there is nothing to grab. Silent authority is not intimidating by threat. It is intimidating by finality. It communicates. Nothing here is unstable. Nothing here is uncertain. Nothing here is negotiable without consequence. This is why silence at this level feels heavy. It is not empty. It is settled. Every movement feels intentional because it is. Every pause feels deliberate because it is. Every word feels precise because it must be. This state reshapes identity. No attachment to outcomes, no dependence on perception, no urgency to correct narratives. Let people misunderstand. Let assumptions circulate. Let speculation grow. None of it alters direction. That is silent authority. The external world adjusts permanently when it encounters consistency it cannot penetrate. Not loud consistency, not performative consistency, but internal, unshakable alignment. Once reached, this state does not fluctuate. It does not rise and fall with circumstances. It does not fracture under pressure. It holds. This is the final refinement of ignoring, not as technique, but as identity. Nothing reaches without permission. Nothing moves without intent. Nothing matters without alignment. Seal this understanding into behavior. Comment, I command without noise. Discipline reaches a stage where nothing needs reinforcement. Choices no longer debate themselves. Boundaries no longer require defense. Attention no longer wanders. The inner order has closed ranks. Ignoring is no longer something practiced consciously. It happens automatically, like breathing. Anything misaligned fails to register long enough to matter. This is the sealed identity. Machiavelli understood that true advantage appears when interference stops working, not because resistance increased, but because access disappeared. The mind now operates on strict selection. What serves purpose is allowed in. What seeks reaction is filtered out instantly. What carries noise dissolves on contact. No tension exists in restraint anymore. No effort exists in holding ground. No emotion exists in dismissal. Focus sharpens because nothing competes for it. Judgment improves because impulse has been stripped of authority. Timing becomes lethal because patience is no longer forced. Engagement is rare and therefore heavy. When words appear, they land. When action happens, it concludes. Nothing feels accidental. Nothing feels rushed. Nothing feels reversible. This state confuses those who rely on emotional access. Charm fails, pressure fails, provocation expires unanswered. Not because confrontation is avoided, but because irrelevance is recognized instantly. The sealed identity does not seek peace. It maintains order. It does not seek dominance. It maintains position. It does not seek understanding. It maintains direction. Narratives continue forming outside. Opinions circulate freely. Speculation grows unchecked. None of it enters. This is not detachment from reality. It is mastery over attention. Attention decides influence. Attention decides energy flow. Attention decides outcome. When attention is governed internally, the external world adjusts automatically. Approaches become cautious, requests become measured, disrespect hesitates before forming. Not out of fear, out of instinct. Instinct recognizes stability it cannot disrupt. The sealed identity also protects momentum. Long-term focus remains untouched. Short-term noise collapses immediately. Consistency compounds quietly, without display. This is the final refinement. Not ignoring people, ignoring anything that does not align with intent. What remains is calm under pressure, clarity under uncertainty, control without exposure. This identity does not fluctuate with circumstances. It does not rise or fall with perception. It does not fracture under stress. Once sealed, it stays sealed. Lock it. Comment, my attention answers only to me. Identity hardens when discipline outlives motivation. No inspiration is required anymore. No reminders are needed. Behavior executes itself. Attention stays locked where it belongs. Emotion stays contained. Direction stays fixed. Ignoring has finished its evolution. What began as control has become default orientation. Machiavelli understood that permanence is the real victory. Temporary discipline impresses no one. Lasting discipline reshapes reality. Every interaction now bends subtly. Timing favors restraint. Outcomes favor patience. Respect stabilizes without negotiation. Nothing dramatic announces this shift. Nothing theatrical marks arrival. Life simply responds differently. Provocation arrives weaker. Noise arrives quieter. Distractions arrive already filtered. Energy stops leaking outward. It compounds inward. This creates the permanent advantage. Nothing external dictates internal state. Pressure becomes irrelevant. Opinions become distant. Chaos becomes background. The inner structure now protects itself. Choices align automatically with long-term interest. Short-term impulses lose authority. Emotion answers to intention, not stimulus. This is where Stoicism stops being philosophy and becomes operating system. Presence feels heavy without effort. Silence feels intentional without calculation. Distance feels natural without explanation. People sense finality in movement. They sense certainty in stillness. They sense limits without being shown them. Not fear, recognition. Recognition that access is restricted. Recognition that reactions are unavailable. Recognition that control resides elsewhere. This is not isolation. This is sovereignty. Sovereignty over attention. Sovereignty over emotion. Sovereignty over response. Once reached, this state does not fade. It does not weaken under stress. It does not fracture under pressure. It holds. From here forward, ignoring is no longer an act of defense. It is an act of alignment. Only what matters enters. Only what serves direction remains. Everything else dissolves without resistance. This is the final posture, unmoved, unrushed, unreachable. The art has been mastered not loudly, but completely. Lock it into identity.